A few minutes before, Broly and his spaceship had moved away from Tights, Amori, and the annoying Jaicos. According to the manga, after this scene, although I don't know exactly when, the whole underwear family will show on the island. It is better that they don't see me for now. Broly had found a large desert island, there were too many on that planet. Then left the ship hidden among the trees. Well, time to pay a visit. Broly didn't even need to use his N to know that since he arrived on Earth and unleashed part of his strength to subdue Jaco, Kami-sama had already known about his existence and was spying on him. Broly, who already knew the location of the Kami-sama temple, and knew he was him in this same moment. He looked at the sky and waved his hand. Hello, now I come. I'm there in a few seconds. Broly unleashed his energy and at a great speed flew towards Kami-sama temple. In the few seconds that the trip lasted, he laughed a lot with the reaction Kami and Popo had. Ha ha ha, I scared them. Kami in particular is greener than usual, ha ha ha. At the end of Korin Tower, Korin was sleeping peacefully like a good fat cat. When suddenly, boom! A supersonic sound exploded very close to where he was, as if a very fast object had passed nearby. What happens? Has anything just come up at full speed to Kami-sama temple? I hope it's not something serious, that guy has immense power, Korin said as he rubbed his eyes. Broly arrived at Kami-sama temple. In that place were Mr. Popo and Kami-sama, who with cold sweat looked at the small figure that appeared before him. They wanted to tell him something, but they did not know how to start the conversation. They were too shocked and intimidated by the great power that three-eyed being had. Broly, realizing that neither of them could say a word because of how tense the situation had become, he started, "Hello, good morning, my name is Broly, I'm 3 years old, and I'm new on this planet. I have been listening to your conversation and you don't have to worry about Kami and Mr. Popo, I will behave very well." Mr. Popo and Kami were relieved by his words. From this distance they could feel that Broly really didn't want to harm either to the earth or to the people who inhabited it. However, they also felt extremely worried about how old he said he was. Kami tried to recover from the great impression he had accused him and asked, "Hello Broly, I see that you already know our identities. I am Kami, the guardian of this planet, and he is Mr. Popo, my assistant. Nice to meet you. Can I ask you a question?" Broly casually replied, "Of course, as long as you answer me later another two." Kami-sama, who did not want to refuse the offer, asked, "You're a very young boy, but at the same time you're immensely powerful, tell me. Are everyone outside this planet as strong as you, and how are they compared to us?" He, being a planetary deity and being able to travel to the other world with the Kai, knew the scales of divinity above him, and also in a certain way his levels of power, but only that. However, he didn't know how strong the beings of space were, and precisely because of what he had seen in the last few days, they knew the planet Earth and they were very powerful. No, not everyone is as strong as me, however, for now there are few people much stronger than me, and luckily or unluckily most are not good people. As for the Earthlings, although from what I can see, you have some very advanced and interesting combat and magic techniques. Your combat strength is ridiculously low. Surely that's why you have learned to take advantage of the slightest trace of energy from your bodies, that you created so many efficient and fine techniques and combat methods. However, there are weak children on my home planet who are born with more strength than your Kami-sama. Your combat level numerically could be 200 and Mr. Popo's is 1030, there are organizations that only accept people with a combat power over 500, and even then they are considered traic in the organization as there are thousands and thousands from them. Mine is over 13 million, but I doubt there are many people my age as strong as me now, don't worry. Do you find my answer satisfactory?" Broly said, wanting to really explain what the situation was. Kami and Popo were pale, understanding how insignificant they were and how helpless they were before any kind of external threat. They didn't know very well how to react or what to do. Perfect, explaining the situation to them, they surely want to depend on me in the case of some external threat. With this, they will try to please me. Can you answer me one question now?" said Broly, who was still floating in the air in a playful way. "Yes, of course," Kami replied, trying to hold on with his cane. "I really want to ask how it is possible that this place is always floating in the air, but better I continue with the plan. What are those Dragon Ball you were talking about recently? They seem to be incredible objects for what you said," Broly asked, feigning ignorance. Mr. Popo and Cammy were surprised by that question. The existence of Dragon Balls was not something to be taken lightly. I see you also heard that. Well, a deal is a deal, I'll tell you. The Dragon Ball are. I know perfectly well what they are, but I must ask this question. It would be very strange if the first day an unknown alien with great power began to gather the Dragon Ball from nothing. In the doubt of the purpose that I could give them, Cammy could eliminate the Dragon Ball, or even commit suicide to make them disappear. I could create suspicion and they wouldn't let me use the hyperbolic time chamber, or they would let me use it, but could destroy the entrance, leaving me trapped inside. There are too many inconveniences in not asking this question, and looking like someone dangerous or excessively mysterious, either because of my power or knowledge. I'll have to feign ignorance for a while. Cammy began to explain what they were and how they worked, and Broly feigned surprise and stupefaction. So if I collect the 7 Dragon Ball, a huge dragon will appear and grant me a wish? Broly asked, feigning more or less the illusion that a small child should have before something similar, but also because of the expectation that he had for the process and the result. Cammy, happy and concerned about the friendly but effusive attitude of Broly to learn about the operation of the Dragon Ball, said, yes, that's right, although Shinran cannot always grant every wish, there are certain rules that. However, Broly, who didn't want to hear all the explanation that Cammy wanted to give, interrupted him, then I'm going to look for them. This can be funny. After seeing the dragon and asking for the wish, I will return. I do not think it will take me long. See you later, he said as he flew down again with the same speed. Mr. Popo and Cammy stood without being able to say anything. Everything had been very sudden, and it had happened very foolishly. Mr. Popo was the first to break that heavy silence. Cammy-sama, do you think we have done well to tell him about the Dragon Ball? Cammy, who returned to recover his composure, answered with some doubt. Uncertain. Despite having a monstrous power at the end, he's just a little boy. I don't think he will ask for anything dangerous, right? Mr. Popo reflected on the words of Cammy-sama and said worriedly, hey yay. At the end of Korin Tower. Korin was sleeping peacefully like a good fat cat. One more time, cats sleep between 12 and 16 hours a day. When suddenly, boom! Once again, a supersonic sound exploded very close to where Korin was, throwing him through the air by the impact and waking him up during the process. Angry and outraged, he shouted, damn! We must respect the time of the nap of others. It is called having good manners. Broly, who could hear him, shouted, I'm sorry. Korin, I was not expecting that person would have listened to him, much less that he answered in that way. Ah well, if you apologize nothing happens. I forgive you. But don't do it again. Then again that voice answered, I can't promise anything. Korin, standing thunderstruck in his palace, said to himself, oh man, he is a troll. Broly returned to the island where his beloved kid, the best spaceship he had built, awaited him. Then he got right in the middle of the island. It seems that it has been a good first contact with those 3 as well. For now, I will assemble the Dragon Ball in an effective and efficient way. Broly, thanks to his and could locate everything that existed on planet Earth. No small detail could escape high, even the best hidden things that even the gods would not want to be found. And evidently, he also found all the 7 Dragon Balls at once. It's been so quick and easy to find them. This takes away all the romantic charm of undertaking a fun adventure to find them. However, I sincerely prefer the tranquility and comfort. It's a shame, but you cannot have everything in this life. Anyway, come to me. House of Gohan. Son Gohan was trying with all his might to put Goku into the bathtub when, come on Son Goku, you have to bathe. When he suddenly looked around and saw something amazing. Huh? What is happening? That strange sphere has gone flying. Came house. Mutant Rashi. Our beloved and perverted teacher was watching a porn magazine, when suddenly an orange sphere with stars flew out of his house. He didn't even notice because of how concentrated he was with his magazine. Broly used his telekinesis in the 7 Dragon Balls at the same time, and from their respective positions he made them fly towards him. In a few minutes, the 7 were assembled in front of him, the 7 shone intermittently. They were ready to be used. I thought I would feel good about having gathered them in such a quick and cool way, but I feel somewhat empty. It has been quite boring. Seriously, it has been too easy. Being so strong has its problems. Now I understand Android 17 and Saitama. They needed to put limits and stupid games to have a little fun. However, I like to be efficient and effective. I don't like to do the idiot to lengthen things unnecessarily. First world problems. Kami-sama Temple. Kami was watching in amazement as Broly had assembled all the Dragon Ball in a matter of minutes without even moving. Mr. Popo, we are really only insects in a universe of giants. He just collected them all without even moving a muscle. Mr. Popo, no less shocked by the words of Kami, what? Impossible. Let's not delay the wait anymore, the moment of truth arrives. The first step of my evil plan, but not so evil plan. Come forth, Shinron. And grant me my wish. Said Broly with his hands up. The spheres began to shine more intensely and without pause. The sky began to darken and the atmosphere became incredibly unusual. From the dragon spheres, a light appeared that extended towards the skies, and within a few seconds that light that seemed to envelop the sky materialized in a long and huge green oriental dragon with red eyes, which seemed to look at the ground with arrogance. Wow, seeing him in person impresses. I'm the eternal dragon. I shall grant any wish you have. Now, state your wish, said Shinron. Of course. My wish is to have unlimited wishes, Broly said in an epic way. Of course. My wish is to have unlimited wishes, Broly said in an epic way. In Kami-sama Temple. Kami was amazed by Broly's wish. Of course he's smart and greedy, I'm not going to deny it, but I fear that. The dragon, somewhat astonished by this desire, replied, I'm sorry, that desire is impossible, I have limited energy, so I can't do that, ask for another. Broly, somewhat disappointed, but not too much. Well, for some reason I imagined it. It would be too nice to be true. Let's continue with Plan B. My desire is to have absolute knowledge. Broly said in an epic way. Shinron once again replied, I'm sorry, that desire is not possible either, it's impossible for me to give you the ability to always know about everything what has happened, happens, will happen, or could have happened, is happening or could happen. Request another. Okay. I'll have to lower my expectations a little. I want all the existing knowledge that exists in all 12 universes, said Broly a little calmer due to the constant rejected desires. Shinron changed his tone a bit and said, that will also be impossible for me, I don't know the information of all universes, only 6 and 7. Ask for another. Broly, quite tired for his constant failures, asked, well, could you give me all the knowledge of Master Zuno, please? According to Jocko, that obese kissing alien knows everything in the 12 universes. I should get all the information I want that way, and he's in the universe 6. Shinron once again answered, this time with cold sweat, I'm sorry, but that Master Zuno is more powerful than me, even if I could I cannot access his memories. If you don't want, ask for another one. Fuck, damn Kami. Why do you have to be so weak? Okay, so give me all the knowledge of universes 6 and 7, come on, I'm in a hurry, said Broly, quite angry with the world. Shinron, feeling something useless, answered, that, it's not be possible either. Fuck. This either, damn Earthlings, Dragon Balls not modified by Dend, you are useless. Broly, already quite angry, now why is it impossible? You told me you had the knowledge of universes 6 and 7. Shinron, surprised by Broly's reaction and feeling somewhat guilty, said, I'm sorry, but I cannot give you all the knowledge of universe 6 and 7, since even I don't have absolute knowledge of those two universes. Fuck. Then give me all the knowledge you have of those two universes. Broly said desperately. Granting that wish requires a lot of energy, the Dragon Balls need a time of rest to recover their energy, and that energy depends on the creator. I cannot gather all that knowledge I have with that amount of energy. Ask for another wish, Shinron said again, trying calm down Broly. Broly frowned and laughed at not crying, Shinron, I didn't want to tell you this for respect, but you're a little useless. Please, ask for another wish. I want to rest, said Shinron, also somewhat defeated. Broly, using all his brain mass, proposed a wish. Okay, could you give me all the knowledge you can, prioritizing all the knowledge related to combat techniques and skills, magic, locations, mystical knowledge and technology. However, before granting it, tell me if it is possible to have everything that interests me. Please. Shinron, a little more confident, said, okay, I'll try. A few minutes later. Shinron, after meditating for a long time, returned to show signs of being alive and replied, it has not been easy, although enough knowledge hasn't been possible to obtain them, only the most important, powerful, and known of our universe and the top tier of the other. If you agree, it seems that I can grant you your wish. Broly was about to kiss the ground in appreciation and said, "Great. Finally. Come one start." "All right," Shirin replied. Shenron's red eyes shone brightly. He was fulfilling his wish. In Broly's head an incessant stream of information appeared. It was as if Shenron were a hard drive and he a computer, and Shenron was trespassing a whole library of movies, songs, and files, which wasn't a quick process, and of course it overloaded the computer a lot. In this case Broly, which, if it were not for the Juggin, would be feeling a big headache right now. However, he took it as a fun challenge, and began a long meditation session. After 3 hours, Shenron had already finished transferring all the information he could to Broly. "I have already fulfilled the wish, I retire." Shenron went back inside the Dragon Ball, which flew into the sky, and when they were about to disperse. "Where do you think you are going?" said Broly, who was still in meditative posture with his eyes closed. Using the telekinesis, Broly grabbed all the Dragon Ball about to disperse and stopped them in the air. Later, also using his telekinesis, he returned them precisely to the same place where he had found them. The telekinesis is being amortized for itself. House of Gohan. Gohan was sitting in his old chair while Goku had finally fallen asleep, when suddenly he saw something enter his house again and placed exactly where the Dragon Ball had been before. "Hey, a round stone." These days very strange things are happening, and they are all due to round flying objects. Came house. Master Roshi was once again distracted watching his favorite aerobic program when suddenly a round stone quietly entered his house and placed himself exactly where the Dragon Ball was previously, thrown in the storage room. Temple of Kami. Mr. Popo checked out from the heights as Shenron had left and observed the strange reaction of Kami-sama and asked concerned, "Kami-sama, what wish has Broly asked? Some evil wish?" Kami-sama shook her head and said, "No, I do not think he asked for something bad. It seems that he is just a little boy wanting to know many things." However, 12 universes. Universe 6. Universe 7. What the hell was he talking about? In addition, why did he return all the Dragon Balls to where they were before? Kami was a local deity, he knew nothing of the existence of other universes. Because he did not want to change the historical course of the classic Dragon Ball saga, Broly decided to return all the Dragon Ball where they were before, so that there would be no differences in Goku's first adventure. However, that did not worry Broly too much now. Now he was amazed by all the information that was in his head. Ha 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 ha. Yes. 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 I would have liked to know even more, but this is awesome. I'm almost like Google. All the information is in my head and I can access it whenever I want. It's even better than my own memory. Remember that the Broly of old movies remembered that Goku didn't let him sleep as a baby. If that is not to have an elephant memory, I don't know what it is. Anyway, it's everything I wanted and even more than I expected. Wonderful, wonderful. This will save me years of hard work and travels. Broly had successfully completed the first part of his plan. With a single wish he had managed to accumulate the vast majority of the useful knowledge of the universe. Knowledge that if he hadn't acquired them in this way he would have to travel planet by planet, even in other existential planes. Convincing and asking other people to teach him all this knowledge, and spend some time in assimilating all these skills. Key manipulation, key sense and training methods of the Earth and other equal or more advanced than Earth. Incredible skills seen during the series such as Kaioken, Genkidama, Four Witches Technique, Solar Flare, Kamehameha, Tri-Beam, Death Beam, Kienzan, Barrier, Energy Absorption, Galactic Donut, Eye Lasers, Spirit Sword, Explosive Wave, Absorption Barrier, Thunder Flash Attack, Mouth Energy Wave. Even magical or mystical abilities like Fusion Dance, Magic Materialization, Healing, Kai, Instant Transmission, Teleportation Sorcery, Manipulation Sorcery, Wizard Barrier, Sealing Spell, Hypnosis Technique, Mafuba, Telekinesis, Telepathy, Premonition, Transfiguration Magic. Nevertheless, even spending years looking for the people who could teach him those skills, he could not have gotten as much knowledge as he had gotten with the wish, since that knowledge no longer existed. The clan of the dragon was a clan with ancestral knowledge that goes back to the origins of the universe. In his memory were techniques of great martial artists that had been lost in the abyss of time. Techniques that would help him in the present and future. He had obtained an almost complete map of the universe, with practically all the locations he wanted to acquire, except for some locations such as the sacred planet of the Kaioshin or the planet of Beerus. Now I knew the use and existence, and creation of mystical objects such as the Pot-era earrings, the sacred water, Senzu bean, fruit of the tree of might, hyperbolic time chamber, time ring, Dragon Balls. All the existing scientific knowledge, such as Dr. Bright's invention, the capsules based on space applications, and also Dr. Amori's time-based scientific knowledge, and most of the scientific knowledge regarding space travel that was in possession of King Cold. I have struggled to formulate that wish, but it was worth. The Dragon Balls seemed to grant a wish exactly as the wisher imagined. Shinran is not as useless as he seemed. I will still need more wishes, but for now, I need to settle my new knowledge, and improve them. Temple of Kami-sama. Kami-sama was still watching Broly, who was quietly meditating on his island for minutes, when suddenly, Kai, Broly said with his eyes closed. With those words Broly completely disappeared from Kami's vigilance, when suddenly, I'm back, said Broly, who touched Kami's back. Ahaha! Shouted Kami, who was not expecting that. Ha 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 ha, Broly laughed. Little pleasures of life. See the god scared by a 3-year-old child. Haha, hello, I've already returned as promised. It has been difficult, but that lizard has more or less fulfilled my wish. You have exaggerated a bit about his skills, but he is not entirely useless, said Broly, floating face down with his arms crossed. Lizard? Not entirely useless. Kami thought as he cried internally. I'm glad you could have your wish granted. There had never been anyone who wanted knowledge like you. Normally everyone just wanted to satisfy their greed, wanted to be kings, dominate the world or similar desires. However, you're different, I'm happy about that, said Kami, not lying. He was extremely restless due to the desire that little monster could ask for, and when he saw that was knowledge, he felt relieved. However, the process of asking for the wish had intrigued him enormously, this. Broly, about what you said during the wish. But Broly interrupted him, it has been a very interesting day. We will see one of these days, for now I have much knowledge that I have to reorganize and practice. However, first I have to apologize to a sleepy cat, said Broly with a mischievous smile. Kai, said Broly and disappeared. Kami and Mr. Popo stood once more looking at nothing, sighing and saying. This desire has given wings to a tiger. Now we cannot sleep peacefully at night without fearing that he appears behind our back. At the end of the Korin Tower. Korin was peacefully asleep again, but due to the continuous interruptions he was somewhat alert in case a prankster boy would fly again at an absurd speed at his side. What he didn't expect is that now that imp could teleport. Broly sidled up to Korin from behind and stroked his head and said to the ear, "Hello kitty." Korin, more frightened than ever, jumped several meters and with his hair completely bristling, looked at Broly meowing like a cat would. Don't scare people when they're sleeping. Korin shouted indignantly. Ha 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 ha, if you're always sleeping, said Broly, teleporting again behind Korin to caress him. Korin, annoyed by being treated like a cat, leave me. Please. He said, trying to get rid of Broly's grip. I've wanted to do this since I was 7 years old, ha ha ha. When Broly got tired of petting Korin like he was a cat, let him go. Korin, trying to take out the little dignity that was left to him today, leaning on his cane presented himself. I am not a cat. I am Korin, also known as the god of martial arts. Have some respect, said Korin. What are you doing here alone? Don't you get bored? Broly asked, not impressed too much. Yes, I'm bored, that's why I sleep most of the time. My mission is to guard this tower and the sacred water. Only those who have managed to climb up here are worthy to drink it and gain a lot of power, Korin said, trying to look grandiloquent. It looks like normal water, said Broly, grabbing the water bottle from the center of the room. It's normal water, but I prevent you from drinking it. For that reason, if someone is able to drink it, it means that he has improved, that has become stronger, although with you it would be impossible. You are immensely stronger than me, Korin said, being honest with Broly. Oh, I see. I happen to be somewhat thirsty. What do you think if I equal your power and we play your game? It can be fun, said Broly in a childish tone. Korin thought about Broly's offer and said, okay, it's okay. I will have the water subject, you will have to catch it. If you win me I will give you a gift. You are ready. Broly reduced his power beyond even that Korin level to make this a more fun competition. However, it didn't take him long to catch him, and when he did. No. Let go. Don't tickle me. No. Corinne said in agony as Broly went back to treating him like a cat, for minutes. Well, let's get down to business. Today I've done so much exercise, so I've been hungry. What do you eat here? Broly asked, feigning ignorance. Corinne, I only have those beans. But they are not normal beans. They are called senzu bean, just by eating one you will be fed for 30 days. And only I can create them here, awesome right? Broly, feigning stupefaction, said, wow, it's awesome Mr. Cat. Corinne, despite being called a cat, he was proud to impress Broly. Corinne, do you mind if I take some of these senzu bean? Broly asked, trying to make it sound quite casual. Yes, I don't see any problem, there are quite a few jugs, take the ones you want, Corinne said to please Broly so he wouldn't treat him like a cat. The amount you want? Okay, I will not be generous. Broly, using the materialization magic for the first time, materialized a quite large sack. Which greatly surprised Corinne, since the only other person who had seen with a similar skill was precisely the Kami. Broly, to the amazement of Corinne, began to fill the sack until it was overflowing. This sack had more than 100,000 seeds, a huge amount, but he still leave many in the Corinne Tower. He was not the only one that would need them. By the way, where is my gift? Broly asked. The gift, ah yes. Corinne said as he approached one of the ends of the platform and waving his cane, a giant cloud appeared. Corinne indicated to Broly that he could take a piece of that big cloud and use it as a transport, as Corinne hadn't indicated the maximum size. Broly grabbed more than 10 meters of cloud, which left Corinne somewhat pissed. With this, his visit to Corinne's tower had ended. Perfect, he hasn't told me about ultra-sacred water. The ultra-sacred water unlocks a fraction of the hidden potential the body has. The problem is that it is poisonous, and I don't want to eat anything poisonous. Also, according to my theory, this is precisely what caused the heart attack to Goku in the Android Saga. It is not normal for a Saiyan to have from such strange diseases. Minutes later, when Broly was about to leave with the Kai, he said, oh, by the way, treasure these seeds, not remove the hunger. If someone is injured, even if he is on the verge of death, he will only need to eat one to miraculously recover. So, don't do as stupid as giving thousands to a person or leaving them in plain sight of anyone. Goodbye. Corinne, who felt as if he had been struck by lightning for all this information, said. And you tell me that now? Now that you've taken more than 100,000? Come back here. Corinne, trying to take out the little dignity that was left to him today, leaning on his cane, presented himself. I am not a cat, I am Corinne, also known as the god of martial arts. Have some respect, said Corinne. What are you doing here alone? Don't you get bored? Broly asked, not impressed too much. Yes, I'm bored, that's why I sleep most of the time. My mission is to guard this tower and the sacred water. Only those who have managed to climb up here are worthy to drink it and gain a lot of power, Corinne said, trying to look grandiloquent. It looks like normal water, said Broly, grabbing the water bottle from the center of the room. It's normal water, but I prevent you from drinking it. For that reason, if someone is able to drink it, it means that he has improved, that has become stronger, although with you it would be impossible. You are immensely stronger than me, Corinne said, being honest with Broly. Oh, I see. I happen to be somewhat thirsty. What do you think if I equal your power and we play your game? It can be fun, said Broly in a childish tone. Corinne thought about Broly's offer and said, okay, it's okay. I will have the water subject, you will have to catch it. If you win me, I will give you a gift. You are ready. Broly reduced his power beyond even that Corinne level to make this a more fun competition. However, it didn't take him long to catch him, and when he did. No. Let go. Don't tickle me. No. Corinne said in agony as Broly went back to treating him like a cat, for minutes. Well, let's get down to business. Today I've done so much exercise, so I've been hungry. What do you eat here? Broly asked, feigning ignorance. Corinne, I only have those beans. But they are not normal beans. They are called senzu bean, just by eating one you will be fed for 30 days. And only I can create them here, awesome right? Broly, feigning stupefaction, said, wow, it's awesome Mr. Cat. Corinne, despite being called a cat, he was proud to impress Broly. Corinne, do you mind if I take some of these Sensibine? Broly asked, trying to make it sound quite casual. Yes, I don't see any problem, there are quite a few jugs, take the ones you want, Corinne said to please Broly so he wouldn't treat him like a cat. The amount you want? Okay, I will not be generous. Broly, using the materialization magic for the first time, materialized a quite large sack. Which greatly surprised Corinne, since the only other person who had seen with a similar skill was precisely the Kami. Broly, to the amazement of Corinne, began to fill the sack until it was overflowing. This sack had more than 100,000 seeds, a huge amount, but he still leave many in the Corinne Tower. He was not the only one that would need them. By the way, where is my gift? Broly asked. The gift, ah yes. Corinne said as he approached one of the ends of the platform and waving his cane, a giant cloud appeared. Corinne indicated to Broly that he could take a piece of that big cloud and use it as a transport, as Corinne hadn't indicated the maximum size. Broly grabbed more than 10 meters of cloud, which left Corinne somewhat pissed. With this, his visit to Corinne's tower had ended. Perfect, he hasn't told me about Ultra Sacred Water. The Ultra Sacred Water unlocks a fraction of the hidden potential the body has. The problem is that it is poisonous, and I don't want to eat anything poisonous. Also, according to my theory, this is precisely what caused the heart attack to Goku in the Android Saga. It is not normal for a Saiyan to have from such strange diseases. Minutes later, when Broly was about to leave with the Kai, he said, "Oh, by the way, treasure these seeds, not remove the hunger. If someone is injured, even if he is on the verge of death, he will only need to eat one to miraculously recover. So, don't do as stupid as giving thousands to a person or leaving them in plain sight of anyone. Goodbye." Corinne, who felt as if he had been struck by lightning for all this information, said. "And you tell me that now? Now that you've taken more than 100,000? Come back here. What a good time I had, not as much as with King Vegeta, but it's not bad. Perfect, I already have thousands of hermit seeds, a flying cloud which I will not use much, but it was a gift, which means it's free. Ah yeah. The environment is so relaxing compared to the planet Vegeta. I hope I don't get too used to it and neglect my training like Gohan did." Broly, who had used the Kai, returned to his island, which years later would be known as Broly Island. "I already have all the skills I would want, food for leftovers, healing methods, good weather. Now it's time to be productive." Broly put his arms in the form of AX, and as if they were illusions, 3 more Brolys appeared. After a few seconds those illusions became solid. It was a cloning technique of one of our Z warriors. Multiform. My cousin's technique, the other Triclop Teen Shinhan. At first Broly wanted to buy Suzaku's technique, which allows to create 6 clones that apparently had similar combat power to the original, but why would he spend points in something like that with this option? The problem with this technique is that it divides the power into equal parts, so it is not very useful for a battle against someone strong. However, as with Naruto's Kagebushin, I will be able to perform several actions at once and learn from them at the same time, although I can only make 4, for now. That's why Piccolo performed similar techniques when he trained alone. I still have many years before the Z series begins, so I can take it more calmly, but I don't like to waste my time either. Each of the Broly clones took a different role. One of the clones would be responsible for rebuilding Broly Island, as well as improving Kid with all the technological advances that had burned into his memory. For this, on this occasion, he wouldn't steal materials from his surroundings, since he had something very special, the materialization magic. Thanks to that magic, Broly was able to create materials that didn't even exist on planet Earth or that were incredibly difficult to extract or process. Although the first few times he didn't achieve very perfect materializations, he kept practicing again and again. Between the magic of materialization and telekinesis, not only he get a better spaceship than he already had and a base of operations on his favorite planet. He trained his ki and then control, his magic, and put into practice certain knowledge that would help him a lot in the future. 2 other clones would be responsible for practicing all the fundamentals he had gained on the use of ki until he could match the deep knowledge he had about Nen. For this they would fight each other in the gravity chamber of the spacecraft. Fighting, the most efficient way who has a scion to improve. Meanwhile his main body would be practicing several of the skills he had been able to find to become familiar with the most useful or different among them. Although many look like the same technique, most had come to similar points from different bases, so it was not easy for Broly to focus on a few. He was quite a perfectionist when he was passionate about something and wanted to get to the origin of these techniques, so much that he lost more time than usual, although he had a lot of time to spare. Among the techniques he practiced the most, apart from the multiplication technique, of course, it was the Kaioshin. It is a technique that multiplies the user's ki, thus increasing their power and speed and enabling them to inflict serious damage to opponents who are considerably stronger than them. However, the downside of the Kaioshin is that it takes a heavy toll on the user's body, making them more vulnerable to enemy attacks, with its maximum increase being x20. The Kaioshin is a technique that was forgotten from Frieza Saga, because after that saga all the power multipliers were based on the Super Saiyan transformation. The Super Saiyan is an energy transformation that multiplies x50 the power of the user, transforming its energy to another state thanks to the S cells. Kaioshin is a technique that only and exclusively increases the base power, but only multiplies the base when it is at its base level. If it undergoes an energetic transformation that changes the nature of that base, that technique no longer works. For that reason, the Kaioshin was never used again in the manga, the official history, but the fucking morons of TOI Animation committed the atrocity of combining the Super Saiyan and the Kaioshin. They had the audacity to in Dragon Ball Z once in a fucking filler chapter. They only committed that atrocity once, nothing more, so, I can let it go, maybe. But in the fucking anime of Dragon Ball Super they had the fucking effrontery of doing this something fairly official. You maniacs. You blew it up. Damn you. God damn you all to hell. If Goku could do this, he will have combined Kaioshin and Super Saiyan in a suicide fights like Cell or Buu. Even when he was dead. Why did he not use it? Stop bringing inconsistencies to the story. But now this was a very necessary technique for him. Currently, due to his overly calm mentality, the problem of tail compatibility or the fact that he hadn't produced enough S cells because of his young age, Broly couldn't transform into Super Saiyan, not being able to get the x50 multiplier or in his case, an overwhelmingly superior multiplier. However, he did have the transformation in True Saiyan, which multiplied x10 the total power of the Saiyan. The True Saiyan wasn't an energy transformation like the Super Saiyan. The True Saiyan is a physical transformation that fundamentally changed the physical structure of the Saiyan, not adding a hidden energy to increase his power. This transformation increases his base form totally. Therefore, the Kaioshin and the True Saiyan were perfectly compatible. With the Kaioshin in his True Saiyan form, Broly had nothing to fear from the most imminent big threats, which were Frieza, and his father King Cold. But also, and perhaps the most important, Broly had managed to access several very useful techniques not seen in the manga or anime. There was a technique he wanted but he didn't expect to find, a technique Broly wanted to create since he was in the incubator. A technique by which he was willing to spend a wish even with the Super Shinran if he hadn't been able to find it or create it by other means. But fate favored him, since on his first day on planet Earth he was able to obtain that technique. That technique was a master key in his plans. Although this technique was difficult and quite opposed to the nature of the Saiyans, for Broly it wouldn't be an impossible challenge. Headquarters of the Space Patrollers. Jaco was having a meeting with the Galactic King and one of the Galactic Patrol commanders to explain the details of his last mission. The Galactic King began with the conversation, "Hello Jaco, how was the mission? What happened to planet Earth?" Minimally concerned about Jaco's performance. "The mission has gone well," Jaco said hesitantly, as if everything had not gone as well as he said. "You will not have mistakenly eliminated the Wola population of the planet again?" asked the Galactic King, putting himself in the worst situation in the case of Jaco. Waving the arms, "No, I swear that this time nothing of that happened. The Earthlings are safe and sound, thanks to me, the peacekeeper of the galaxy, the chosen super elite galactic patrolman Jaco." He finished with his classic pose. After the Galactic King and the commander made it look like they had not seen that ridiculous pose, asked the Galactic King, "Then you have fulfilled your mission?" "No. I don't know very well how to define it," Jaco said hesitantly again. The commander, seeing that something had happened, asked, "Did you find the Saiyan?" "Yes, a Saiyan came to the planet, although it was not at the time we calculated," he reported, making himself interesting. The commander, ignoring his usual strange behavior, asked him, "Were you able to eliminate him?" "No, it was impossible," Jaco said with cold sweat. "Was it an adult Saiyan?" The Galactic King asked, minimally worrying about the reasons for the failure of the mission, and perhaps also for the safety of Jaco. Jocko, with shame and indignation answered, no, it was a child. The commander, in a mocking tone asked sarcastically, so you were defeated by a defective scion child of those who are sent suicide missions? Jocko felt that he was losing all the dignity he had, or that he thought he had said, he was not a normal scion child, this one had 3 eyes, a very strange ship, he was very strong and had strange abilities. The Galactic King, without paying any attention to the protest and details of Jocko, said after sighing, then you have failed your mission. Jocko, not giving up, tried to justify using the arguments of Tights, arguments that even he believed, I don't think I failed, that Scion did not seem to have bad intentions despite being so strong. I don't think he is a threat to planet Earth. The commander, somewhat irritated, said while reading a report, stop with the excuses Jocko, you have failed your mission, so this will be deducted from your salary. In addition, we have realized that the ship we gave you has been modified. And everyone knows that you're too stup, you have no mechanical knowledge. Therefore, someone had to help you get back from that planet. Which means that we have probably given our technology to a primitive civilization, changing its way of life. This will also be deducted from your salary. Jocko desperately pleaded, no, please no. I have difficulties in reaching the end of the month. After Jocko went out of the meeting room completely depressed, some of the senior officials were still talking about what happened. He really is the most useless patrolman of all, said the Galactic King. Totally true, King. What do we do with planet Earth? Said the commander. Don't do anything. We sent Jocko precisely because there was no problem with losing that planet, said the Galactic King as he retired. Frisia spaceship. Sitting in his flying chair, Frisia watched the landscape of the space next to Dodoria. When suddenly Zarbon entered the room and knelt down near Frisia, Hi Lord Frisia. Frisia turned to him and said, report, Soldier Zarbon. Zarbon nodded and gave him the message. Apparently the message of regrouping we sent to all the scions did not reach all the spaceships and one in particular ignored the call. Frisia thought in silence for a few seconds and asked, how many survived? Zarbon continued reporting, a total of 14 scion spaceships have arrived and request to know what happened to the planet Vegeta. Frisia with a sinister smile said HHMM. The one who ignored the call was the Prince Vegeta. Zarbon nodded, that's right Lord Frisia, Prince Vegeta is among the survivors. Frisia, resting his hand on his cheek and said with a sinister laugh. It's just like his father, too proud, they could have been good pawns in my army, but... It's a pity that the god of destruction Beerus suggested me to destroy them. Although... I would surely have ended up doing the same thing, ho ho ho. I don't like those scion too much. Dodoria with pride and some arrogance for his position asked, what do we do with the survivor scions, Master Frisia? We killed them. Frisia watching out the window said, no, they can still be useful. Despite being stupid and proud they are still quite useful. And now that they have lost their home planet they will have no choice but to submit completely to me. I haven't lost hope that they can become my loyal subjects. At your command, Lord Frisia, replied Dodoria and Zarbon at the same time. Frisia continued with her speech, I am also glad that Vegeta has survived. He is surely the scion with the greatest combat potential in history. The other weird case in recent years had been that strange three-eyed boy from the reports, but he had a very low fighting power and he was still very small, and this is not a daycare. Who knows, maybe with Vegeta can finally see if there is that super scion that has been spoken of for centuries in my clan is real or not. Tell those monkeys that the planet was unfortunately destroyed by a meteor shower. And make sure nobody talks about what happened on the planet Vegeta. Capsule Corporation. Dr. Brief and Bulma were working together on the construction of a hovercraft, the new invention of Capsule Corporation. After the visit of Jocko, they were able to analyze his spaceship and create these vehicles. While Panchi brought them sweets to eat, Tights appeared in the workroom. Papa, Mama, little sister. I'm going back to Amori Island, don't wait me for dinner. Tights told the whole family as she grabbed the vehicle keys. Panchi with his usual good humor so characteristic said, okay honey, do you want me to prepare something for you and your friends? No mom, no need, replied Tights casually. Are you going to go with that weird alien friend or with the one you told that have 3 eyes and a monkey tail? Bulma asked, which was analyzing some components. With neither, Jocko has returned to his job in Broly, he has not contacted me since then. I guess he'll be busy. Tights said with a thoughtful face, putting a finger between his cheek and his lip. While Dr. Brief was still assembling parts of the vehicle, it's a shame, I would have liked to see his spaceship, by how you described it seems spectacular. Bulma working in the other part of the vehicle said, I want to see it Papa. Jaco's spaceship was fun, but I want to try another one, besides I would like to see an alien who doesn't behave like an idiot. Tights already leaving in a hurry said, well, if I see him, I'll tell you something. Bye. Kami Temple. Mr. Popo was fixing the garden of the temple and Kami had gone for a walk outside. Kami noticed several irregularities in the garden and asked, Broly have come back today? Mr. Popo still arranging the plants said, yes, he has been training with me. Kami extremely surprised asked, since it was impossible that this could be called training considering the difference in strength, with you? Training? Mr. Popo left the plants and addressed Kami, yes, he adapted his level of power to mine, he learns excessively fast and every time he made new tactics and techniques. He's really a prodigy. Kami, surprised, but not too much asked, have you been training him in the hyperbolic time chamber? Mr. Popo grabbing a shower said, not yet, he says he wants to wait for the right moment, since he only has 2 attempts. Kami, who did not understand what Broly was scheming, said, that guy is too mysterious, strong and intelligent. I'm sure he's scheming something. I can feel it. Mr. Popo released a capsule on the floor and a great variety of useful and automatic devices for the daily life appeared, especially for cleaning, and said, but he has brought us all this, it's a bit of a bastard, but it's not bad at all. Kami, a little moved by the detail, said, it's a pity that he is not pure-hearted, with his abilities he would be a magnificent Kami. Corinne Tower. Corinne was lying on the ground in a position reminiscent of a sleeping cat. Zzzzz. Zzzzz. Ah ah. Zzz. Evidently, he was sleeping. House of Gohan. Gohan was sitting in his chair while Goku, with his head bandaged, was stretched out on the bed sleeping. That has been a very serious blow to the head, it is a miracle that he has not died. Poor Goku, he lost his memory and he still hadn't told me where he came from or what he was doing on that device. But I must see the positive side of the story, after the hit he is much peaceful, he seems a completely different person. Planet of Beerus. Beerus was eating extremely noisily while Whis was preparing even more food. Beerus, who had already finished eating as much as he could, put on his pajamas and said to Whis. Whis, I'm going to sleep a little, I don't think it'll take me too much, probably only 30 or 40 years, see you later. Whis with his usual carefree attitude said, okay, when you wake up, try to better fulfill your role as God of Destruction please. Broly Island, not yet officially inaugurated. The Brolys continued to build the island, training and practicing different energy application techniques, creating explosions in the sky, which scared away all the fauna, whether terrestrial, aerial or maritime animals. When Broly was satisfied with the development of one of his new energy attacks he decided to take a break. He went to the giant fridge they had created and took several drinks. Ah, nothing like a cola after a little exercise. And I can take a normal one, and not zero or light. Another good thing about being Saiyan is the metabolism. It will be difficult for me to get fat. While drinking almost everything in the fridge, Broly noticed a drink. It wasn't an unusual drink, in fact, it was the most usual drink on the planet. H2O, or water, as you prefer to call it. Soon I should be able to start creating my special technique. I already know that I'm a specialist, so I don't need the water divination test to know it, but it can be fun to see what phenomenon I can cause. All the specialists have a different one. Water divination test is the most useful process to know the nature of Nen. A student of Nen will place their hands around the glass and perform Ren, the resulting effect from one's aura contacting the glass will determine a person's aura type. If the volume of the water changes, the user is an enhancer. If the taste of the water changes, the user is a transmuter. If impurities appear in the water, the user is a conjurer. If the color of the water changes, the user is an emitter. If the leaf moves on the water's surface, the user is a manipulator. If a completely different change appears, the user is a specialist. Broly materialized a glass with water and with telekinesis grabbed a fallen leaf on the ground. He filled the glass and put the leaf on the surface of the water. Broly put his hands around the base and focused his Ren. And practically in the same second a rather strange phenomenon occurred. The water and the leaf that floated in the water, both, had disappeared completely. Year 744. It's been 5 years since the day Broly landed on Earth. Broly was now 8 years old, and despite being a few years older, his body had not changed at all, he was still a dwarf. Scions have a naturally long childhood, retaining a small and childlike appearance for much of their early life. Goku appeared to be no older than an average 7 to 8-year-old Earthling, and 2 years later, at age 14 he'd barely grown at all, with his limbs growing out only slightly, a small increase in height and musculature. After 3 years, however, upon reaching physical maturity, Goku's body underwent a massive growth spurt. At the age of 20, Goku was around the same height as Yamcha, who was only 2 years older at the time. I'm going to be a hobbit until I'm 17 years old. Luckily, I know that in the future I will be a muscular and virile man. Not a half-meter like Krillin, Vegeta, or Frieza. I could wish to become adult to Shinron, as Pilaf and the others did. He successfully turned them into children again, but I don't know if becoming an adult can have bad consequences. What if I miss the best stages to train? It's say that children absorb information very quickly. It will be better to go step by step, rushes are not good traveling companions. In addition, the trauma of some will be greater if a small child defeats him. After 5 years of construction, the Broly Island was already finished. Thanks to the magic of materialization, that has reached an absurd limit. Broly didn't have at any of logistics, storage, waiting time of arrival of materials or budget problems. It was as if he were building his house in Sims with all the existing expansions and with the trick of infinite money, and his telekinesis was the construction tool. In few years, the desert island became a sort of fortress/7 stars paradisiacal futuristic hotel with a spaceship in the hangar, Kid 2.0. Tens of times faster, and despite having a size 4 times smaller, its interior was 100 times more spacious, thanks to the technology of Dr. Brief, which allowed to attach in it a gravity camera that increased x800 the normal gravity, and of course a bigger jacuzzi. In a private cove on the island, near a self-managed bar were several people sunbathing in luxury hammocks eating and drinking. Simply perfect, this the paradise. It's said that Spartans had no comforts, no luxuries, and that this is why they were one of the most important warriors nations in the history. Ha! Idiots, sure that's why they went extinct. Am I right, guys? Said Broly. Yes. Ha ha ha. Shouted at the same time another 15 Brolys who were doing exactly the same, drinking and eating while sunbathing. Broly didn't need to talk to his clones. Unlike Naruto's Kagebushin, they shared the same mind in real time, it was unnecessary to communicate something. It's as stupid as talking to yourself pretending to be another. However, he thought it was funny. Life is too absurd to take it so seriously. You have to laugh whenever you can. Moreover, if nobody makes the joke, I'll have to do it myself, or one of my clones, ha ha ha. Brolys, I'm going to train with Mr. Popo, see you later. Remember to do your homework, said Broly as he took off his swimsuit, destroyed it and materialized a training suit directly in his body. Sure, don't worry Broly, said the Brolys lying in the hammocks. Trust us, Broly, we are you after all, ha ha ha, said other Brolys who were inside the house doing other things. Broly during these 5 years had been working and improving many techniques and magic that he had won with his wish. Among them, the one that he used the most was multiplication, which he used every day, trying to improve the number of clones, his quality and applicability, to be able to do even more tasks, and other functions. I have to start socializing with more people, with other people, or at this rate, I will end up becoming a self-centered narcissist like Zamasu, hugging myself, or something worse. If I keep improving the cloning technique at this rate. Broly said as he watched his island full of Brolys. Broly, who seemed to have taken no action, instantly teleported in front of Mr. Popo. Hello Mr. Popo, how about a little training again, don't worry. I will contain myself excessively, as always, said Broly in a casual way, as if they were lifelong friends. Mr. Popo not surprised by the sudden appearance of Broly, as always. Forgive me for doubting your words. You always say that, but then you use more strength than you promise me. I repeat again, I use the strength that I tell you, it is a special technique that improves my skills without increasing my strength, said Broly, who seemed not to be the first time repeating this speech. Well, I agree, I have no other alternative, Mr. Popo said with a sarcastic tone. During those 5 years, Broly had been training with Mr. Popo almost daily. Although Mr. Popo had a power only slightly higher than 1000, he was created by deities to serve the kami of the planet Earth. Mr. Popo had been training kamis and prodigious warriors who had managed to reach Kami Temple Palace from generations ago. Although he didn't possess a prodigious force in comparison in the rest of the universe, he was undoubtedly the strongest and most knowledgeable martial artist of the planet. Not using his wisdom and teachings would be a waste. Today I will reduce my combat power to 50, I will not fly or use bursts of ki or telekinesis, but I will use my new ability. I'm sure it will surprise you, said Broly. Oh, I'm expectant, but please don't cause too much damage, even if you repair the temple later it hurts me see all the destruction, said Mr. Popo. Don't worry, I doubt that I will destroy a lot, my technique doesn't have this purpose, said Broly to reassure Mr. Popo. Broly moved his hands in an irregular way and released his aura, but it didn't break free in a normal way, as normally does the ki or the nen. It didn't overflow the body, it didn't fluctuate in the least, it was like a thin almost imperceptible and uniform sheet made of green energy that shone with an intense green color. It seemed as if Broly's body shone with its own light. Mr. Popo with some indignation, that technique again, no. What's the use of telling me that you'll only use 50 fighting power if you do this? Broly suppressing all his strength to 50 and therefore his attack, speed and defense in a proportional way, launched towards Popo at full speed, but Mr. Popo once again realized that he was moving much faster than his level of power indicated. When he gave the first punch, he noticed that he had hit in a much more powerful than the power level he announced. When he counterattacked hitting Broly, he felt as if he had hit a concrete block. Not only that, his body acted in a very strange way. The attacks were too chaotic. When he attacked with his right punch at the same time he gave a left kick in a perfect way, without losing coordination, precision and power due to doing two different actions at the same time. It was as if he was fighting two Broly in the same body. Are you sure you're not cheating me? More than 50 you seem to be using 200-inch said Mr. Popo suspecting Broly. I'm sorry Mr. Popo, but I'm not cheating, my power is 50, check it with the detector I gave you, I'm in 50 from the beginning. Popo checked the power of Broly and the detector was right, he had not changed 50 at any time. How is it possible? Mr. Popo said, surprised another day by his strange ability. It's a kind of energy control that with the same level of power makes me use my energy more effectively. I'm not increasing my power, I'm just making my energy better and therefore all my abilities improve, said Broly with arrogance. At least teach me how to do it, Mr. Popo said. I'm afraid that in all the universes this is a skill that only I can have, Broly said proudly. Why did Broly say that only he could learn this technique? Because you needed to have Nen, something that only he had in all the Dragon Ball universes. If the Ki is the Yang methodology of manipulation of the vital energy, then the Nen is the Yin methodology of manipulation of the vital energy. Broly from the time he was in the incubator was trying to combine the Ki and the Nen in a perfect way. In a certain way, he previously managed to combine the Ki and the Nen, but in a very poor imperfect way, he could hardly combine them well. If he used 100 units of Nen he could only combine them with 10 of Ki without losing the balance. However, despite this poor combination, the properties of his attacks and abilities improved visibly. At first Broly believed that he can't manage perfect combination because he didn't have a deep enough knowledge of Ki, but he also considered another possibility, which turned out to be the most certain. It required the use of the Nen whose first principle consists in retaining the aura, with the Ki whose first principle consists in releasing the aura from the body. It required the use of both opposite processes at the same time, something that was practically impossible to perform. For this, Broly wanted to create certain technical that would allow him to perform two actions at the same time. He was even willing to collect the Super Dragon Balls in case he could not get it, but fortune smiled at his first wish, getting the Dual Body Mind technique. Dual Body Mind. This technique is able to create an axis in the middle of his body, and control the left and right sides of his body freely yet separately, performing two different actions at the same time. But thanks to a great training in his Jugen, which served as a link between the two sides of the body, he was able to not only perform two different actions at the same time, but also create a perfect synergy between the two actions and halves of the body. However, with just this technique it wasn't enough to perfectly fuse these energies. Although he could perform both actions at the same time he was unable to combine them perfectly, it was like trying to combine potassium chlorate and caramel without exploding. He was trying to combine contraction and expansion at the same time and want them to remain eternally in that state. After great effort, he was able to achieve this fusion for an instant less than a second. which sadly depressed Broly for more than a week, but in blow of inspiration and remembering a forbidden technique of one of the most beloved mangas in his previous life history's strongest disciple Kenichi, the Seed Goitsu, got the solution for his problem. Seed Goitsu. It is a very dangerous technique from the ancient martial arts. Seed Goitsu combines the opposing ki of both Sei, Yin, and Do, Yang, by having the first being focused inward, while having the second explode outward. The result is an explosive boost in all of the user's physical capabilities and increased effectiveness in the user's martial arts techniques. However, due to the conflicting nature of the ki of Sei and Do, extensive use of this technique causes a disruption in one's flow of ki, resulting in crippling, even fatal damage to the user. However, the technique itself didn't allow merging them, simply combining them. It took advantage of the one's recoil to give the other a bigger boost by creating an interval of powerful explosions inside the user's body, but if it were not for his powerful body of legendary Super Saiyan, he would very likely have been seriously injured when using it. Although that drastically increased his combat skills, it wasn't the result Broly expected. After many trials and sufferings, he understood the perfect combination. While one half would use Zetsu and subsequently Ren, the other half would perform the reverse process, release ki, and then repress the ki. As if they were two frequencies that combine in a single point for a moment, then stop combining, again. After years of practice, in which Broly managed to increase the speed of these two frequencies in an abysmal way, until reaching the Planck length, he achieved the effect he was looking for. He managed to mix the Nen and the ki perfectly. They were not fully merged but had the same effect as if they were merged. As if they were images that, when moving quickly to 24 frames per second, created a movie for the human eye. After years of training, suffering and great stress on his body and mind, he created the perfect combination of ki and nen, resulted the Kaien. Because it was in constant compression and expansion on oneself in the most efficient way, it had formed around Broly a layer of Kaien with the thickness of a sheet of graphene, a thickness of 2 dimensions. However, that sheet of Kaien shone with such strength that seemed to be bigger. In that state, his total physical, energy and mystic abilities have increased without increasing battle power. Combining the mysticity of Nen and the tangibility of Ki in all his skills. It also acted as a perfect armor that allowed attacking and defending at the same time with the same efficiency. It was like his had the Ko all over his body, although he didn't spend much more energy than keeping the Ten around the body. The union of Yin and Yang. Nen and Ki. The perfection. He. Get ready, Mr. Popo, now I'm going to show you the result of my special technique that I have created specifically to become the most powerful being, Broly said while his Jugen shone in a unusual way. Broly was completely static on the ground without moving the least, about 20 meters from Mr. Popo. He extended his arm in the direction of Mr. Popo and while pressing his index finger against his thumb said, "Be careful, Popo." The next thing Mr. Popo saw was that the hand that was initially attached to Broly instantly appeared in front of his face and hit him with his index finger. The blow threw him back a meter. It wasn't too painful, but it caught him totally by surprise, and he was more surprised to see that the hand was still in the air. Surprised, he looked at Broly's arm, and where his hand should be, there wasn't thing. The only thing he could see in the area where the amputated arm or hand should be connected was a strange green energy, which covered the end of his arm and the beginning of his hand. Mr. Popo, extremely surprised and without understanding what was happening, said, "What just happened?" Broly with a mocking laugh said, "I gave you a blow with my finger on your forehead and you fell on your ass. Come on, we still haven't finished the training." Mr. Popo got up from the ground and decided to approach to attack Broly, contrary to the defensive attitude he always used. However, just as he moved forward, the hand that remained in the air disappeared, reappeared just below his legs, and grabbed his ankle. The hand rose as if flying by itself, taking with it Mr. Popo, who had been caught by surprise, literally. Meanwhile, Broly kicked the air, and just when the leg was about to reach the maximum speed, disappeared. Appearing instantly in front of Mr. Popo, giving him a kick in the stomach, which he was able to block with his arms, hitting the ground by the impact. At that moment, Broly's hand and leg returned to his body instantly. Broly wasn't teleporting his hands and legs through portals like Janemba or Zamasu. They were not limited to a specific point of predetermined entry and exit. He could make them appear and disappear instantly wherever he wanted, as well as move them in the air from the position where they appeared to other places as if they were flying. "What did you think of my skill?" "Awesome truth," Broly said as he gradually made his right arm disappear from top to bottom and making it appear from bottom to top. "It's awesome, Broly, with attacks like this you can catch even the most experienced fighters by surprise, said Mr. Popo, incredibly surprised by this strange ability. Broly, satisfied with Mr. Popo's expression, said, "Come to me, attack, I promise my legs will not move from this place until the fight is over." It was as if Mr. Popo's attacks were going through Broly's body, as if he were an unattainable mirage. When Broly realized that Mr. Popo had realized that he was incapable of hitting Broly, Broly teleported the upper half of his body to Mr. Popo's back, and while that upper half floated in the air, punched him in the arm, the same arm instance before tried to hit his body. Mr. Popo was about to return his attack with the same arm that was hit, but horrified, he realized that part of his arm had disappeared, and that instead, in the same way as with the teleported parts of Broly, there was a kind of green energy covering the ends of the missing part. "Broly, what have you done? Where is the missing part of my arm?" Mr. Popo asked in horror. He didn't feel more pain than the one Broly inflicted on him with his blow, and after that part of his arm disappeared, but he was unable to know where it disappeared. In fact, it was as if that part no longer existed. He was unable to feel it. Broly's arm was gone, and he noticed how something had appeared behind him and had pierced his body. Broly's entire arm came in from his back and went through the other side, right where his heart was. Mr. Popo panicked. He thought that Broly had wanted to kill him, but then he calmed down. He didn't notice any pain, there was no blood, and once the arm of Broly returned to its place, he saw how there was a circular hole in and out of his chest, whose interior was covered by the same green energy. Broly, seeing the scared face of Mr. Popo, said, "Don't worry, I have only borrowed them and stored them somewhere else. I will return them after the fight, or you can even get it back by yourself, if you take the opportunity." When saying that, the green energy that covered its disappeared parts began to shine with force, and it began to expand, as if it was devouring the near parts, making them disappear. Despite the bizarre situation, be swallowed by a strange energy. Mr. Popo noted that although his missing parts didn't return to where they should be, unlike before, he could feel them again, as if they were somewhere else, but at the same time they were still part of his body. "Try to send energy to the missing parts, you will see what happens," said Broly to try to help Mr. Popo. Mr. Popo, listening to Broly, sent a lot of energy to the parts that were trapped in that strange place, and the devouring energy stopped moving forward. "You have to send a little more," said Broly. Mr. Popo increased the amount of energy towards the missing parts, and little by little, the devouring energy began to recede, little by little returning the devoured parts to his original position. It was like a game of stretching and pushing, the one that you had to spend energy to prevent that devouring energy advancing and spend even more energy to recover the part of your stolen body. There was the risk of being completely devoured, but also the opportunity to recover what had already been devoured, even though that entailed an important energy expenditure. Mr. Popo, after a few seconds, he had his body back to normal. "What was that?" asked Mr. Popo, who wanted to know about this bizarre skill. "Ha ha ha. I'm sorry, it's a professional secret. By the way, what if I enter the hyperbolic time chamber?" "I think I've already stretched it too long," said Broly as he returned to transport the upper part of his body with the bottom. Mr. Popo, still shocked by everything that happened, said, "Yes, of course." Mr. Popo, after talking with Kami, quietly accompanied Broly to the hyperbolic time chamber, which wasn't a short path inside the labyrinth of the temple. "It's the first time I use it in battle, but my formless realm is awesome, and that I've only used its first phase." During the creation of his characteristic Nin ability, or rather, his characteristic Kaien ability, Broly thought about his more developed ability, his En. His En was so immense that it was able to cover beyond the solar system, and thanks to the Kaien was able to keep it active all the time, even in combat. Therefore, he decided to create his skill based on his En. With that thought in mind, Broly started creating his skill. Broly created with Nin a realm, a dimension that only belonged to him. A hollow and green dimension where only he could exist, and maximum size of that realm would be the maximum size that his En was able to have. Broly would be the absolute god of that realm, being able to enter and exit at will and move among its 4 dimensions. In the same way, he could also leave the formless realm to the normal world, as long it was a place to which the formless realm had access, a parallel dimension, which the connection with the normal world was his En. Broly first sent a part of his body to formless realm and then made it reappear in a place of the normal world that was within the reach of formless realm. Being that green energy that surrounds both parts separated the same formless realm, which acts as a connection between both parts. For example, the whole arm enters the formless realm, and then the arm is teleported in a specific position inside the formless realm, the position where his target is in the normal world, and then the whole arm except for 1 centimeter of the arm, the centimeter of the lower end, goes outside to attack. In this way he could not only teleport himself or part of himself within his own dimension, he could also send part of that part within its dimension outside the dimension. Also, since there was still a centimeter of that part inside the formless realm, that part was able to move 3-dimensionally and teleport inside it, making the outer part move to the same position in the normal world, giving the feeling that was the outside part the one that was flying and teleporting. This was the trick behind the teleportation of parts of his body, or of his whole body. For the attack, transporting parts of his body or himself to attack quickly from unsuspected places. For the defense, transporting parts of his body inside the formless realm and in that way, not be beaten. To flee, going inside the formless realm and escaping at its furthest point, or waiting inside until there is no danger. However, he needed to create that space. The maximum size was the one that had its N, but there wasn't a minimum size. Broly imposed the norm to create the space of that realm. To create a cubic meter he must use 10.000 combat power in the form of energy, he chose 10,000 for being the amount of combat power he would have been born with. With that, Broly spent years filling his formless realm, creating clones with which were constantly releasing and recovering energy to be able to enlarge its dimension. It was as if the N was a pool and the space created was the water that filled the pool. In those waters is where Broly could swim, dive and drink. That space would be filled in a circular way around Broly like the N until it was full. A somewhat tedious self-imposed restriction. Today his formless realm hadn't even filled 0.03% of his total, but, still, it was enough to have a size similar to that the planet Earth and even more. The formless realm had many other applications, although most were not applicable to the battle now. What he showed in Mr. Popo were: Welcome to the Black Parade, Broly upon having contact with an object, either physically or by energy attack, with the exception of telekinesis, in the event that such contact has taken place within the N covered by the formless realm, it will be possible to devour that part within the formless realm. An exact portion to the combat power that is in the area of the object that you want to transport to the formless realm. If the arm area of Mr. Popo that Broly stole had an amount of 10.000 energy, Broly needed to sacrifice a cubic meter of formless realm to transport that part. When someone hits another hard, that other one will suffer damage and that damage will cause the hit area to lose the energy that protected it. Therefore, the stronger the attack, less space from the formless realm must be sacrificed to steal that part. With the exception of Broly, everything that enters the formless realm was kept in a kind of stop time. Everything that went in unless Broly brought it out, could never exist again, and the same form would exist forever in the same state it entered. A never-ever land. Surrender, as long as there is a part of an objective within the formless realm, and the user is in the formless realm range, it will be possible to activate this skill. The formless realm connected to the stolen part of the enemy will begin to shine and spread to the rest of the body, increasing the stolen part, spending an equivalent amount of space in the formless realm. However, this is a double-edged sword, because if the necessary energy is supplied by the enemy to the part trapped in the formless realm, it will be possible to recover it. The affected will need to supply 33% of the energy that Broly is using to prevent the advance of the devouring, and after that amount, he will be able to recover his affected part at a speed related to the energy used. Performing each of those skills meant losing space within formless realm, a space that should be replenished again. Even though his clones were supplying 10.000 power units of combat power constantly to the formless realm, the fact of losing the space that had cost him so much to build didn't please him. That's why he put on this condition, to make his realm and skills stronger. This was only a small part of the abilities of his unique characteristic skill. And of course also only a small part of the restrictions and conditions of use of these skills, and of those that hadn't yet shown, or improved. Even though it seemed an incredibly powerful ability, and even invincible, it wasn't. It had enough restrictions that would be seen later against strong enemies. After a while, Mr. Popo and Broly managed to get to the door of the hyperbolic time chamber. After Mr. Popo explained again how the hyperbolic time chamber operated, Broly entered alone. Upon entering he looked around, he was inside the legendary central building of the dimension. Outside the building, all the surroundings remain an infinite constant bright iridescent white aurora. Broly was inside the hyperbolic time chamber, with which he had always dreamed as a child, and not as a child. Perfect, I have a maximum 2 years, or 2 days to create my form realm. Outside of the Kami temple. Mr. Popo and Kami-sama were chatting between them, their faces showed some concern and impatience. Are you sure he understood the rules of the hyperbolic time chamber? It is about 2 days after he entered, Kami asked Mr. Popo. It was evident that he was worried. Yes, Kami-sama, I told him perfectly and I also made him repeat everything I said for greater security. I guess he must be about to leave, replied Mr. Popo, also somewhat worried. Kami, who could no longer pretend not to be worried, said, a person can only spend 48 hours in real-life time inside the hyperbolic time chamber. If he exceeds this time, he will be forever trapped in that dimension and we will never be able to see him again. I pray to the heavens that he will return soon. It is a somewhat special boy. How would you say, a bit of a... Mr. Popo finished his sentence, a bit of a bastard. Kami-sama. Yes, that's right, a bit of a bastard, but deep down I know he's a good boy. He has a lot of jokes, but I have never seen him hurt anyone and from time to time he has details with us. I hope he comes out safe and sound, said Kami-sama solemnly. While praying, despite being a god, they both heard footsteps inside the temple. Those steps seemed to come specifically from the area where the hyperbolic time chamber was located. It couldn't be another person, it was Broly, who had just left the hyperbolic time chamber and went quietly outside to greet them once again. Kami-sama and Mr. Popo were happy for their return, they had been very worried. And partly they were also glad that Broly hadn't suddenly teleported to his side to play a joke on them. However, immediately that joy became restlessness. Those steps are not normal, Kami-sama said with cold sweat on his green forehead. The steps that could be heard inside the temple were too long and heavy, they couldn't be made by the legs of a small child, even if they had spent 2 years inside the hyperbolic time chamber. He was only 9 years old. It was impossible that he had grown so much, it seemed the steps of a person more than 2 meters. The uneasiness in Mr. Popo and Kami-sama was obvious, in his mind they only had thoughts like, what the hell will we see next? What has he become? Will it be the same Broly we knew? The footsteps grew closer and more powerful. Kami and Mr. Popo swallowed several times, because a silhouette was beginning to appear through the door. A tall silhouette of around 2 meters, which advanced towards the door. Eyes impossible, he has not been able to grow so much, Kami said. As he got closer to the door, the figure of the person who came out of it became completely visible. Before the eyes of amazement of Kami-sama and Mr. Popo, Broly appeared, and his body was completely the same as before. He hadn't grown or changed in the least, not even his hair, despite having spent 2 years, hadn't grown a centimeter. The two focused a little more on the appearance of Broly, trying to find some difference, but the only difference was his clothing that did not leave them indifferent. After 2 years of hard training, what everyone expects is that the clothes were torn and dirty, with a dirty body and a disheveled appearance due to the hard training routine, but it wasn't with Broly's case. He was dressed in a child-sized Armani suit, covered in a luxurious bathrobe, moccasin shoes, a pure gold Rolex, sunglasses of the highest quality, and drinking cappuccino while reading the press. In addition, he was sitting in a large armchair that seemed to have been stolen from a royal palace. They looked down and saw that this chair had long robotic legs, which advanced as if it were a person. Kami and Mr. Popo understood now, from the beginning Broly, even before leaving the hyperbolic time chamber, he had been sitting in this strange chair with only one purpose, to play another joke. This cappuccino is delicious. Oh. Kami, Popo, what a coincidence to find you here. I was reading the press. I've been absent almost 48 hours. I must be up to date with what's happening around me. Oh, what are these faces of indignation? By chance, have you been worried that I did not leave on time, and when you heard that I had left you were happy? But then you heard some very long steps that did not seem the same as mine, and you thought that I had grown excessively in a short time, or that I had transformed into some strange and enormous being, worrying you enormously. When I was just sitting in my robo-armchair Kuan, which was moving towards the exit while I was relaxing myself. Because if it's been this way, it's very funny, ha ha ha. I would love to see the face of surprise and indignation that you would put if that were the case. Yes. Exactly. Faces like the ones you have right now. You have understood me well, ha ha ha, said Broly, dying of laughter in his robotic armchair. Kami and Mr. Popo, who felt enormously outraged and humiliated by Broly's joke, again, sighed heavily and thought, I will never worry about him again. We should have told him that he could have been 200 days inside. So, we would not have to endure his jokes ever again. After a few seconds, the ones that they were trying to kill Broly with their mind. Have you been able to train correctly? Asked Cammy, who had serious doubts due to the appearance and attitude of Broly. Broly, feeling outraged by Cammy's doubts, replied while dipping some cookies in his cappuccino, "Of course, I trained hard." "Why do you doubt it?" Mr. Popo and Kami-sama chose not to respond. Their reactions are not as fun as before. After 5 years I think they have become too used to my jokes. A shame. Broly came down from his comfortable robotic chair and said, "It was an incredible experience. It's a shame that I could only be there for 48 hours, but it was worth it. Well, I think I should say goodbye for the moment. So maybe we will not see each other for a while," said Broly, fastening his bathrobe well. Cammy and Mr. Popo, surprised by the news, and somewhat happy about its content, asked, "You leave? How long? Where?" They asked to make sure they had really heard what they had heard. "That's right, I'm leaving." "How long?" "Well, I couldn't say exactly how much. Maybe 2 years, 5, 10, 17. I'm going to make some small trips through the universe. I've been accommodating too much and I think it's time to get out of my comfort zone," said Broly, checking his 14-karat clock. The two, both encouraged to hear his response, "We like it or not, we will miss you, Broly, we hope everything goes well, and you can return safely as soon as possible, lie. Broly, if... Don't worry, if some threat comes from outer space you can call me, and if I'm in a good mood maybe I'll help you, hahaha. Just kidding, I built a house on this planet, I don't see with good eyes a group of aliens that want to destroy my private propriety," said Broly, who had read the mind to Kami-sama, anticipating his question. Kami-sama, comforted by Broly's response, told him, "I am happy with your answer, we are very grateful." Broly, something blushing, said, come on, let's not get sentimental, we'll see each other again." Broly looked at his robot chair and said, "As a detail for today I give you my robo-armchair Kuan. You are already a little older, Kami-sama, and surely a chair like this can be very useful and comfortable. Well, see you in a few years. Bye." Broly disappeared from where he was, leaving alone in the Kami temple his two usual inhabitants, Cammy and Popo, who were still standing in the same position as before. After a few seconds of taking a breath, which tasted like freedom, they started talking. "It's a shame that he left for a while, he filled this place with happiness and joy," Cammy said while winking at Mr. Popo. "You are right, Kami-sama, life without him will not be the same," Mr. Popo said, winking also. "He just left and I miss him," Kami-sama said once again, winking his eye excessively, precisely with this phrase. Kami-sama and Mr. Popo, they spoke winking in this way because they were not sure if Broly was still listening to them, it was evident that they were trying to say the opposite. Mr. Popo walked towards the inside of the temple and said, "I'm going to check in what state the hyperbolic time chamber is now. I hope he did not overdo it." "Okay, Mr. Popo, I'll wait for you here," said Cammy, watching how Mr. Popo walked away. Seconds later Cammy looked at the strange walking chair that Broly had given him and approached her. "It has a very strange shape, but it seems quite comfortable and useful. I guess I have no excuse to not try it," Cammy said as he approached the chair. Cammy sat placidly in the chair and suddenly. Just now, when Cammy sat on the chair, it sounded with a brutal force, the sound of a frightful flatulence, which was heard throughout the sacred land of Korin. Even Korin woke up from fright. Kami-sama, totally flushed, got up and inspected the cushion where he sat and realized that Broly had put on the couch a fart cushion, one very powerful. It turned out that this innocent and generous gift was another fucking joke. Broly. Mr. Popo entered the time room to inspect his condition and repair the possible damage. Surprised, he realized that the insides of the building were in an unbeatable condition. In fact, Broly had taken the trouble to redesign everything, making the building much more modern and functional. Oh, there are even small robots doing housekeeping. This will save me work on following occasions. I'll have to thank him when I see him again. Mr. Popo left the building towards the training area of the dimension and, he was horrified by what he saw. A few hundred meters from the building there was a huge crater. Mr. Popo couldn't believe what he was seeing, couldn't believe that someone could do that to the floor of the hyperbolic time chamber. Mr. Popo advanced towards the crater and at his side was a note that said, "Dear Mr. Popo. I'm sorry, I've broken the floor a little bit. Signed by Broly." Ha 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 ha, by now Mr. Popo must have discovered the crater and Kami-sama must have screwed up. Well, time to collect the suitcases. The dozens of Broly clones had already prepared everything he needed for the trip, storing it in the formless realm. I will leave 1% of my power on planet Earth just in case something happens. I don't know how my actions have been able to change the history, so it is better that I leave something of myself as a countermeasure. Broly had managed to dominate and improve in a much more perfect way the multiform of Ten Shinhan, now he did not must divide his body between 4 and therefore his strength between 4. Now it was possible to divide by percentage the number of clones and power that each clone had. For example, the original body had 99% of all its power and its other clone 1%, or the original body had 96% and 2 clones 2% each, or 100 clones with 1% each. Now it's time to visit my new Victi. I mean, dear character that I must visit. And troll him. Creator thought. If you've watched this far, thank you very much. Now a question for you. Do you want a long or short video? I'm thinking of doing 1 hour long or continuing with 10 minutes, what do you think? Well, the main reason is why I will only need to render 2 times. First for the audio after cleaning the noise. Second to render the video and upload it. If not, then I would have to do 2 for each video. If you like this content, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you later, bye bye.